Time can be thought of as a dimension like any of the other three, a fourth dimension. This four-base set of dimensions is called space-time.
The laws of thermodynamics, in particular the second law, lead to what we call the arrow of time. The arrow of time states that time only runs in one direction, on a macroscopic or a large scale. A common example to illustrate this is scrambled eggs. If you scramble some eggs, you cannot then unscramble them. Hence, the arrow of time, the process can only occur in one direction. On a microscopic level, time can be reversible. If you consider a photon, a packet of energy, if this photon has a high enough energy, it can spontaneously transform into an electron and a proton. Subsequently, the electron and proton can collide and transform back into a photon.
The only exception to the idea that time acts the same forwards and backwards is entropy. Entropy stems from the second law of thermodynamics and is describing the collective behaviour of a system. Specifically, the group of particles tends towards the least ordered state.
Therefore, adding the arrow of time and entropy together yields that over time the entropy of the universe will increase, so the universe becomes more disordered over time.
Time in Slaughterhouse 5 is predictably unpredictable. At one point the hero is abducted by friendly aliens called the Tralfamadorians, for whom the novel describes all moments past, present and future always have existed, always will exist. The Tralfamadorians can look at all the different moments. They can see how permanent all the moments are, and they can look at any moment that interests them. It is just an illusion we have on Earth that one moment follows another one, like beads on a string. The Tralfamadorians therefore have absolutely no fear of death because they can see the fourth dimension. So an example of this in the text: when a Tralfamadorian sees a corpse, all he thinks is that the dead person is in a pretty bad condition in that particular moment, but that the same person is fine in plenty of other moments.
Yet whether time can actually exist is a philosophical puzzle. Some, like J.N.E. McTaggart, argue that there is no such thing as time. What we perceive as time is an illusion. His argument starts by claiming there are two distinct ways we can order time. These are the A series and the B series. The A series orders time according to the possession of properties, such as being 2 days in the future, being 1 day future, being present, being 1 day past, etc. The B series orders positions in time by two-place relations. For example, 2 days earlier than, 1 day earlier than, simultaneous with, etc. The B series without the A series does not involve genuine change, therefore it needs the A series. Yet the A series is inherently contradictory, for it contains properties that are incompatible with each other. Something cannot be future and past, but at the same time it has to, for a time that is future will become present and past as well. Because the A series leads to a contradiction, and there can be no time without the A series, time itself, including the A and B series, is unreal.
The start of the time is defined as the Big Bang. We define time like this because all physical laws break down before the Big Bang, and thus we have no idea what existed beyond the singularity. As we can quantify the beginning of time, we can also hypothesize about the end of time. The most popular idea is that as the universe is constantly expanding, eventually all matter will spread out so that no interactions can occur, and the expansion will stop, and with a frozen state universe. This means that nothing in the universe will change, and so time will become void.
Presentist philosophers argue that only present objects exist, and there is no such thing as past or future time. If we were to make an accurate list of all the things that exist, there would not be a single non-present object on the list. Thus, you and Butler College will be in the list because you and Butler exist presently, but Charles Dickens or a future Martian would not be on the list because they do not exist presently. Any object that lacks the property of being present does not exist, according to presentism, and thus past and future are unreal times. Thus time exists, but only presently. Talk of time in the past and the future is unreal.
Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, 1988, explores a theory of his that posits the dissolution of the time boundaries of the universe, i.e. its beginning and end, in scientific theory in the 1970s, around then. And the 1970s is also around the time that literary theorists were deconstructing the idea of linear time, and novelists were dramatising this chronological confusion. And there's a clear connection between theories of time and theories of plot for the obvious reason that plot represents events which happen over time. And postmodern fiction is often characterised by a concern with ontological categories. It explores often the boundaries between fact and fiction, frequently by playing with or subverting traditional concepts of time. For example, the ancient idea of plot structure that dictates that a plot should have a beginning, middle, and an end. It questions the idea of linear time, blurs the distinctions between past, future, present.
Time travel has a prominent place within science fiction, books and films, and things like Doctor Who make us imagine that such a thing could be possible. Yet, there is a question as to whether it could ever actually be done. Scientifically, we question whether the laws of nature allow such a thing.
As far as the law of physics go, time travel is simply impossible. For someone to travel back in time, it would require them to move faster than the speed of light. It is outlined in Einstein's theory of special relativity that anything with mass can only approach the speed of light, but can never surpass it. As an object approaches the speed of light, time actually slows down for the object. This has been measured when clocks have been placed on space shuttles. The clocks run slower than a sister clock held stationary on the Earth. This is an outstanding revelation, as it means that time is not constant as we once believed, but able to change to match the reference frame's movement. By thinking about time in this way, it is useful to introduce the concept of the fourth dimension, i.e. the dimension of time.
A way of seeing that time is like the other dimensions is in its symmetry. Any cause and effect system, or motion, is the same going forwards or backwards in time.
For time travel to be possible, the laws of relativity would have to be proven wrong. This has not been done so far. Therefore, it is generally agreed in physics that time travel with any kind of information is impossible.
A further objection to the possibility of time travel is the paradoxes and absurdities such a supposition could bring. The grandfather paradox is one of the most famous arguments for this, and goes as follows. Premise 1. If you could travel back in time, you could kill your grandfather before your father was ever conceived. Premise 2. It is not the case that you could kill your grandfather before your father was ever conceived. For to do so, you would ensure that you never existed, which is something you could not do. Therefore, you cannot travel back in time. However, some philosophers do argue that time travel is possible. The human capacity of imagination is highly valued in philosophy. Thus, the vast amount of literature and films to do with time travel do play significance to some philosophers.
An example of this is, the second hand on my watch would twitch once and a year would pass, and then it would twitch again. The novel tells a tale of a guy called Billy Pilgrim, who's a wartime Chaplain's assistant and also a time traveller.
Some philosophers argue that the fact that we can imagine the possibility of time travel, and indeed do so in a variety of ways, shows that it is not fundamentally illogical and therefore an impossible concept.